There you go, you've solved it.
I've solved it. Right. Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, people are still coming in. Usually, Millie, during these things, people kind of come in and out because it's a sort of busy time of the evening. But as we say, we'll pop it in our Bags of Joy Facebook group tomorrow so that everybody who can't make tonight can catch us on catch up. But we're really looking forward to chatting with you. So thank you so much for being our guest this evening.
Oh, it's a pleasure, absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Right. Martina's going to do all of the just in case, because in case mine drops completely.
Okay, so welcome along, ladies. This is Millie Johnson. She's a British author of romantic fiction. I believe you're an after-dinner speaker, poet, professional joke writer, short story writer, and a jack of all trades. So we are very much looking forward to hearing all about your career and how you've got to where you are today, and a bit of background about what inspires you for writing and what's coming next for you. So if you wouldn't mind just sort of taking us back to the early days of where it started and what inspired you to get into your career.
Yep. Well, I always wanted to write. It's as simple as that. Right from an early age, I wanted to write. But I didn't think that girls like me who came from industrial towns with no contacts in the industry, with no creative writing qualifications, I didn't really think I had a cat in hell's chance, to be honest, of doing, what I thought was I might as well have wanted to be an astronaut. It seemed so far away, but at the same time, it's all I ever wanted to do. I was an academic at school, I was, I loved studying, etc. So I went to uni to do a drama degree, a teaching degree, and don't know what I was. I had a pal at school who kind of automatically swept all the literary awards if there were any to be had. I was better than her at drama. Mm-hmm. So I went for something that I could do rather than something that I kind of really wanted to do. And while I was at university, I met an actress actually who sort of I broke down one day, because I'd been dumped by my boyfriend back home, and I thought, not only am I kind of emotionally adrift, I felt kind of career adrift, and I got a job working in a hotel in the summer, and as I met this actress there who said, all the people that were on the film shoot with her, some of them would fall by the wayside, and some of them would, do really well, but they were all giving it their best shot. And she kind of made me promise to give this career my best shot. So I went back to uni, started writing, script writing more than performing, and left, uni thinking I'm not going to teach. I don't want to teach. I just did a succession of jobs because there was nothing that fitted me. I just came home from these jobs and started trying to write a book, sent it out, it got rejected. And the reason it got rejected was that I couldn't actually have been published with the sorts of books I was writing then. I needed to be have some life experience, because my books are told from from an experience point of view of life. I got my big break really when I was pregnant. I got pregnant at the same time as two of my pals, and when we were all sitting in my front room, I thought, why aren't I writing about this? Why aren't I writing about friendships and life up north and jobs? And sent off this story I'd mapped out about 3 women who all got pregnant at the same time on the cusp of 40. And the agent that I'd been chasing for 15 years said, this is the one I've been waiting for. And gave me my first deal. That was 18 years ago, 18 years. And my book came out a couple of years after, 19 years it was, 19. And that was it, never looked back. My books were selling, the North was selling for me So weirdly, the thing that I didn't think would sell for me, i.e. the North and you know, living up north, etc., and life up north, was the thing that actually sells my books for me. And I've just finished my 23rd book. I've got the 22nd out there. They're all set up north. They're all about northern women. They're all about the extraordinary things that happen within the parameters of ordinary life. And that's it. That's why I've made a career out of it.
I think you're right, and I think that's why you've done so well, because your books are so relatable. And I love a rom-com book, and I listened to a few of your books because I'm a runner, and I just love putting the headphones in, and you can relate to what you're saying, and it's funny, and you just can like get to know the characters really well, which is really nice, because you do read some books and you think this is a million miles away, and I think after a hard day at work, it's just nice to switch off and read or listen to something like that. So congratulations, it's fabulous that you've done that.
Yep, I can't believe it, actually. I feel like I'm talking about somebody else.
23 books.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that your kind of experiences shaped some of your stories, but were there any authors and books growing up that really inspired you?
Oh, crikey, yeah. I mean, there were no young adult books there, so we kind of went straight from Enid Blyton into Lace, you know, and Jilly Cooper's, Barbara Taylor Bradford, the Thornbirds. I mean, I read all the sweeping emotional books. I loved the classics. I was very lucky because the books that were chosen for us at school to read were books I loved. Jane Eyre just blew my head off. I think probably because I read it at the time when my hormones were cranking up and fell totally in love with Rochester. I think there's a bit of Jane Eyre in every single one of my books, you know. But I loved Far from the Madding Crowd. I loved Kes, you know, because that was kind of set where, you know, I grew up. I loved Stan Barstow books. And then by chance, when I went to live in Haworth for a few years, I ended up living a few doors away from Stan Barstow. And you know, it was really weird. I thought, but he came to my wedding. You know, this big author that I'd studied at school. It was bizarre. But I'd read all his books. But I just loved. I loved the big sweeping stories. I loved the Thornbirds. I loved everything that she'd ever written. I loved Tim. I thought that was a gorgeous story. But I'm a bit of an easily seduced reader. I think I read a blurb and think, oh my goodness, that is great. The one book that absolutely blew me away was Bridget Jones.
Yeah.
And I read that and I thought, for the first time, this is a book that is me. You know, that is me with all the insecurities and neuroses. So this is me. And it was lovely actually, because of wind forward a few years, and the first award I ever went up for she was Helen Fielding was giving out the awards. And of course, you only met her if you won the award. And I was sitting there thinking, please, God, please let me win this award. And I did. And so I had Helen, and I thought, she's in front of me. What do I say? And I came out with the classic, I love you, because I couldn't think, I was so starstruck. And we had such a lovely chat, because obviously she's a Yorkshire girl and used to come to my hometown in Barnsley all the time. I think she said she'd met this guy, used to have a bit of a snog with him in a bus stop, and she was great. And it just, I wasn't bothered about the award. It was, I have met my heroine, you know. But that was the one book, I think, that I loved all books, but the one book that really spoke to me, that I could climb into the skin of the heroine, and it had a big impact, i.e. that I wanted to write books that other women, ordinary women like myself, could climb into the characters in my books and step in their footsteps through the story, think this is happening to me. It's a massive influence on me.
Yeah, and it's true, because I remember back to my high school days in English. I'm like you, I loved English and I love reading, and our teacher made us read War of the Worlds, and I hated it so much, and it just put me off completely because I couldn't understand the book, and it was just so sci-fi. But you've got to have something that people can relate to. So totally your point there.
Yes.
So what's like your writing routine? Because do you just come up with an idea and then that just sparks everything, or is it a bit of a process that you go through?
Well, I'd love to tell you I was an organised planner, like a lot
I'm
of.
not either, don't worry.
No, I'm chaos personified. I have an idea for a book. The one I've just finished, for instance, I knew I wanted to set it on a train over Christmas. So I've got my kind of framework, that was it. But I can't plan. I don't know what happens on page 2 until I've written page 1. So I just had an idea for how do I get these people on this train? Right, start with a character. How do I get? Yeah, she's got to meet somebody else in the waiting room, and I knew that I wanted 7 people. So it's a weird thing how it kind of evolves. The only thing I can think of is I have 2 images in my brain. One of them is like the old-fashioned photographs that you see a blurry image and they suddenly start to make sense and become clear when you put them in some chemicals. And the other one is driving in thick fog, that I don't see what's in front of me, but if I travel a yard, I can see a yard more in front.
Yeah.
So I literally just start with one word, and it picks up another word, and that picks up another word, and somehow, by magic or don't know what, I reach 100,000 words, and at the end of the book, and think, how the hell did that come out of me? It's a weird thing, because I didn't know this book was inside me. And it's become one of my, and I always say in speeches, I don't think any of us knows what's inside of us. We're all like Mary Poppins bags. And I'm living proof of that, because you don't know what is inside you until you start pulling it out. For people who say, I'd love to paint, but I can't paint. Have you tried? Have you opened up, a tin of paints and just had a go and seen what you can do? And until you actually try, you have no idea what we're capable of. But people don't. They're frightened of failure. So they just don't. And they should.
It might be very therapeutic as well, because I suppose now, if you've got feelings to get out and you can't quite speak them, it's good to write it down and write someone a letter and, really get your thoughts out and on that bit of paper.
Yeah, people do. And they will write to me and say, I'd love to write a book. I've got this story to tell. And I thought, you know how hard it is to write a book? It's a massive undertaking. You can write without having to write a book and put yourself under that pressure, because people start to write and then they think, I've got to write a book now. And then it puts them off. And I said, just write your feelings. You don't have to write a book. Just don't put yourself under that pressure. Just write, or write a poem. Sometimes, writing doesn't fit into a framework of a story. It just might be a poem, and you have a go at a poem.
Yeah.
And I would always try and inspire people to get the enjoyment out of writing, rather than the pressure, the heavy pressure of what they have to do. No, you don't have to do anything. Just put a few words down and see where it takes you, because you don't have to plan anything. You just.
Do you ever know your endings beforehand, or does that just come as the story flows?
No, I don't have anything. I don't have anything. I know it's going to be a happy ending.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the 2 people I want to get together will get together. But not everybody does. Sometimes I'm writing and I think one of the lesser characters. There was a story I wrote a couple of years ago, a Christmas one, and I wasn't quite sure right up until the end if this couple were going to get together again at the end. And they didn't. And it was right that they didn't, but I didn't know that at the beginning. But, I know it's going to be a happy ending.
Everyone loves a happy ending, though.
Well, yeah, because I mean, my books, I take my characters through some proper hardship, because life is like that. I write stories about life, and life can have a lot of ups and downs in it. And so I think if you take your characters through, however many harrowing storylines, if you reward them and you reward your reader at the end with the actual message that, you can go through some proper shit in life. Absolutely. But at the end, there is hope. I would never leave my readers without hope that things can change, things can get better. Women who have maybe lost their way in life, they have renaissances at 40 and 50, because so many do. Mm-hmm. I did it myself. And so you've got to leave readers with hope. And it's nice, you know, you want your characters, the people you like, to get the endings they deserve.
Yeah.
And that includes the nasty ones as well. You know, I don't want them to have a happy ending.
They've got like friends, don't they? Have you had any characters that have really taken you by surprise, like what you thought they would become or what thought they would be, and then they've completely changed into something else?
All the time, all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a mother-in-law in my 4th book, which was about cruises. A dreadful old harridan. And as I was writing her, you know, she was a bit part. She was a cameo. But as I was writing her and invented this story of her past life, and I found myself warming to her, and I wanted her to have a happy ending as well. It was quite a comical story in the end. And then I brought her back for a couple more books. I mean, she must be about 110 now. She's still cruising. But I will be bringing her back in the book that I'm about to start as well, because as I say, she wasn't a nice character, but she turned out to be so full of fun. And I loved her. She was a great comedy vehicle for me. And I really loved her and her partner. And so, yeah, it's a joy to have them back and carry on writing them again.
Well, that's nice. That is good. Have you got a favourite book that you've written?
Yeah, I mean, it's a standout favourite for me. Although it is a little bit like asking you which is your favourite child, because I love them all. They're all my creations. But, you know, if somebody put a gun to my head and said, you know, and it's usually a last book, because, you know, your head is full of it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to stick my neck out now. And I wrote a book, a Christmas book, a few years ago. And it was just after my father had died. He died in the December. And this book should have been in at the end of January, and I hadn't even started it. And my agent said, just forget it. And I needed somewhere to put a lot of emotion. Mm-hmm. So I started to write this book, and books are hard to write, but some are easier than others, and some absolutely roll out of you as if you're a conduit and somebody else is writing it and you're just writing the words. You're just you're being dictated to. This book was very different to my others. It was only 6 people trapped in an inn over Christmas, and this book just rolled out of me. I absolutely loved writing it. And there was all sorts of weird things that happened around this book. It was obviously, I was writing it in the period of COVID, and we'd already thought of a tagline, which was a Christmas like no other. So they made it special, and there were 6 people all trapped together. And it was a book that, when it was going to come out at Christmas, they were already saying that there were going to be 6 people only at Christmas. They were all trapped together because, you know, we could only have 6 people around the Christmas dinner table. It was going to be a Christmas like no other. And my publishers were getting slightly nervous that people just wouldn't want to read a book that kind of mirrored their own experiences of being trapped with 5 other people. And it flew. It absolutely flew. If Richard Osman hadn't had a book out, my book would have got to number 1, but he was kind of trapping the bestseller list for like ever. And it was my highest chart position. It got to number 2 in the charts, which was, you know, amazing. And people really took this book to their hearts. And every single year, this book has become a bit of a favorite for people. It's become the Home Alone for them. They get it out every Christmas. They want that familiarity. And the book I'm releasing in October it's the sister book to that. It's not a sequel, but there are crossovers. Mm-hmm. And it's about 7 people who get stuck on a train over Christmas in the same area where these 6 people were. Again, a magical thing. I thought I'd really wanted to write a sequel, but I couldn't work out to do it because I couldn't go back there. It would be too samey. And I just happened to be, I'd forgotten about it. I'd put it to one side and just happened to be walking through the living room no idea why there was a Hallmark film on, because my partner wouldn't put a Hallmark film on. And it was all these people on a train. And it was like, God, that's it. That's my book. I could set it all on a train. Just started to write itself in my head. It had exactly the same vibe that the first one had. And I'm so proud of it. I actually can't wait for it to come out in October. I think it's going to be a big book. I just, you know, I'm almost like, okay, summer, get out of the way. I need to October, which is great. So I'm very excited about it.
That's good. And I suppose you could continue with books 3 and 4. You could be stuck in a plane, stuck in a library, stuck anywhere.
Well, to be honest with you, it feels like a double act, because I wrote this one after my mum had passed.
Right.
And the first one was like my dad's book, and the second one is like my mum's book. And it feels like just those two can sit in isolation. I don't need any more. I've kind of got, I think, what I need to say. And I think any more and it would be overkill. But those two just are perfect, I think. I'm hoping this one isn't overkill. I'm hoping people say, well, it's not as good as the first one. But we'll have to see. I'll have to take my chance on that.
I'm sure it'll be great. We'll definitely all read it.
Yes, I'll do. I'll be checking. I know where you all live.
Yeah. Right, Megan, one for the book club in October. Mark that down. So writing can be quite a solitary process, I would imagine. So how do you keep energized and motivated if you're kind of by yourself all day getting all these words out?
Well, I'm quite lucky, see, because I'm an only child. And I'm an only child who never liked to play out. So I was always in with books and you know, and writing and doing crafty things. So I was quite used to my own company. I think if you aren't, it could be quite a hellish profession. But these days, you know, with social media, etc., you hook up with other writers. You hook up with other writer friends. We have a Zoom group every Friday. I've got great mates who email, you know, so we talk to each other. So we've got a support network, because it's lucky, really, in this job, nobody ever tells you anything about what happens behind the scenes. You learn from each other. You learn about, oh, have you had this benefit? Did you know you could claim for this? The tax, you know, so we learn from each other. So luckily for me, I both can work under my own steam. And I treat it like an office job, because I've done office jobs for so long. So I sit down at kind of 9 o'clock or whenever I've walked the dog and have a lunch break, and then I work up to 5, 6 at night as I would in an office. Yeah. But I love what I do, and that motivates you, and it keeps you, you know, it keeps you on the straight and narrow, really, because if you didn't, and if I had to wait for inspiration to strike me, I wouldn't get anything done. You have to just warm up, you know. Sometimes in the morning I just think, oh God, you know, it feels like a job. Not often, but sometimes it can. And I just warm myself up, you know, as if I was at the gym. A few light weights, a few stretches, and then I'm into it. You know, you warm yourself up to the job in hand. And I'm very, very good at self-discipline. But it is, you know, it is not a natural thing, I don't think. And if you want to do a job, you learn, you know, if you do something often enough, it becomes a habit. And so we can all learn the skill of self-discipline if we try it a few times. You know, it's like trying to stop biting your nails. You've got to stop it, you've got to do it. And eventually it will kick in and you'll change your habits. So
well, I'm 35 and I've still not stopped. I think to learn that. I've still not learned. It's awful, but anyway. Self-disciplined in other ways, but not with the nail biting. So what about creative blocks? Do you get them quite a lot?
No, not at all. No. It's I think creative blocks are just an excuse that writers invent for themselves, so it gives them an excuse to go shopping online. There are moments when I think, you know, I'm not in the mood for this, and I don't actually know where this is going. But I start at the beginning and work forwards. Very, very rarely, if I think I don't know what I'm doing here, I might just abandon that scene and go on to the next scene, and then by the magic of whatever, I will realise what I've missed out. But sometimes all you need to do with a creative block is do something banal, like go and walk the dog, or ironing used to be my thing, even though I'd rather walk the dog. But it's a bit like, you know, when you're stuck on a crossword puzzle and you leave it, you just leave it, you forget it. And then for some reason, when you're not thinking about it, the problem is solved in your head. Yeah. The answer will come to you. And that's because you've just given your brain a little space to work it out in the background.
Yeah.
And so if I'm ever stuck, I just let this little man, who is obviously living in the back of my head, kind of sort it out for me. That's how it feels. And, you know, and I don't have creative blocks, really. No, not at all. And if I ever get a little bit stuck or a little bit bored, I think I'm boring myself here, something not quite right, I'll go and walk the dog, or I'll go and iron a shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I suppose it's like any job. You have your moments where you just think, I can't see past this, I need to step away, and then it'll come to me. Yeah. So your books have touched so many people. And is there any pieces of feedback or from fans or any interactions that you've had that are really memorable that have touched you?
Oh, so many, you know, lovely. I've got them all. I kept them all. I run off the emails because we don't set out to do that. We don't set out to change lives. We don't set out to do anything like that. We set out to write a story. We don't set out to preach. I'm not going to teach anybody how to live their life. All the mistakes I've made, you know, I just want to write a story. But people will, as I say, they climb into your character. And I get so many people who write to me. And there was one lovely lady who wrote to me and said, I left my husband because of you. And I've had this quite a few times, that they look and think, why is she still with him in that book? She's a doormat. And then they realise that they're actually reading about themselves and what they put up with and how far their goalposts have moved in life. Yeah. And this lady said, you know, I was in this dysfunctional relationship, and I realised that I had to leave it. She got cancer. This lady, she got breast cancer, and she said I felt like if I don't go now, I'm just going to have no life. So she walked out of a marriage, and she said, I met this guy on a dating site. I thought I'm going to go on a dating site. And he had a heart problem.
Wow.
And he was a 6'5" farmer. And she said, we just thought, what the hell? We're going to hook up. We're going to just live our lives for as long as we've got. We are really happy. And this story just made me sob, you know. And then a couple of years later, I was telling this story to people. And the woman came up to me and she said, that's me.
Oh, that's so nice.
And I kind of almost wanted to say, oh my God, you're still alive. You know, that kind of thing. I said, how are you doing? We're still together. We're still doing all right. We're still happy, you know. And it was like a fairy story, you know. Yeah, loads of people who've said I've changed. I wrote a story about cleaners, you know, and this lady wrote to me and said, because of that book, we've packed in our jobs. I've always wanted to be a cleaner. She said, I have my own cleaning firm. And me and my pal have set this cleaning firm up. We've called ourselves two women and a mop. That's the name of the cleaning firm. And so you get these lovely letters of women who've said, you know, I've been going through absolute shit. My mum's died and I picked up your book and it's just taken me out of the zone. Lovely, lovely letters, and you know, I can prove them. I've got them all, and I always write back. You know, I might not write back with all the paragraphs that they've written to me, because I do get quite a lot of them, but I will always respond. And it's so touching to think that words that you've written of people have actually taken them to their heart. They've changed their lives. They've done something. They've left dysfunctional relationships. They've actually heard. I wrote one called The Woman in the Middle, about a woman who is basically squashed out of her own life because she's got no time for herself. She's looking after elderly parents. She's not convinced that her kids who have left home are actually ready to have left home. And she's holding down a job. She's looking after her husband. She's doing everything. She's got no time for herself. And I've had women who have written to me and said, actually I felt really heard by that book. And I'm taking a bit of time out for myself. I've got the message in that book that it's okay to do that. It's okay to recharge your batteries, because we don't expect cars or appliances to run on empty, but we do ourselves.
Yeah. And I suppose with social media these days portraying these lives that everyone's leading that are perfect and you can do everything and be so happy and joyful, that actually when you pick up your book and read it, you're kind of back in touch with reality if that's what everyone's going through.
Yeah. Well, the latest one I wrote was inspired by me kind of not having any sleep during the menopause, and then seeing this woman, this chirpy woman on the TV, telling us how to go through the menopause because it's a superpower. And I thought, God, it couldn't feel any less like a superpower at all. And I thought, there's something in here. There's something in women who are struggling with all the worst symptoms of the menopause, getting up in the morning, feel absolutely drained and having to do an 8-hour shift. There's something there about it's okay to admit that you are having a rough time and that it is not a superpower, that you are not coping with it, that you've got X, Y, and Z symptoms. And it would be really helpful if someone could tell me what to do about these, because it's still quite a mystery. We are talking about it more, but there's still so many options. We don't know what to believe. We don't know if those gummy capsules work. Because the person who's advertising them is being paid a lot of money to advertise them. We don't know what works. What works for one doesn't work for another. And that's where the idea for this book came from, that it is okay for women to say, I'm having a bit of a rough time here and I'd like to be heard. I'd like someone in my workplace to not actually make a joke about, oh God, she's on one, she's grumpy, she's having a menopause, like they used to do with, oh, she's on the rag because she's a bit gobby, she's got PMT. Women are reduced to jokes and to just a list of symptoms, and I thought we deserved more than that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. That's really good. Yeah, I know you get that a lot, like, oh, it's time of the month, that's why you're being so grumpy. You just feel like being like, that's so frustrating. Yeah. But your stories are full of joy and humour and wit. So apart from the writing process and the feedback that you get, where do you find your joy in life?
I find joy in everywhere, to be honest with you. I didn't know this was a thing, but I've done it for years. And then I came across someone who said about glimmers. And I didn't know this was a thing. I thought it was just me just taking a little step out and thinking, God, that was really nice. You only get a really good cup of tea and think, God, I haven't done anything different with this tea bag. But for some reason, it tastes great. And just, I suppose, these little things to take you off the boil when you're really, when you're really busy, that, oh my God, this getting something in the post and actually savouring that you've bought a new notepad or whatever and actually putting your pen on the new notepad. These little tiny moments I found, excuse me, but they're called glimmers apparently, and people, just finding little joys in life. But I'm a kind of a happy person anyway. I love to laugh. I've got great mates. So I find humour and great mates can get me through a lot in life. If I've ever been down, I know that this too will pass, because I've had rubbish relationships. I had an awful marriage, and I knew that I would come through with it. I've always found that having, even when your glass feels very half empty, that's going to flip on its side, and that there's going to be something good around the corner. I think part of that is with this job, because no 2 days are ever the same. You think I'm gonna just sit down and write, and then you might get an email from someone. There's always some nice thing around the corner. There could be nasty things around the corner as well, but the nice things, there's always something to look forward to. And if there's not, I just go and buy myself something on Amazon that's going to cheer me up. I'm a great believer in retail therapy. look at it.
Here.
I came attracted to this because there is nothing that cheers me up more than a new handbag. Nothing. And I've obviously had the need to cheer up quite a lot because I've got quite a few of them. And even going to a cupboard and thinking, what handbag can I take today? Oh, I think this is that handbag. You know, it's little tiny things, and it's always the little things that mean a lot to me, and I recognise that.
And we've even got a handbag named after you, don't we? The Millie bag.
No!
It's
great. Yeah.
So how do you switch off? Do you like travel, or what do you do? Or do you ever stop working, or is it always writing?
Well, I'm taking a year off actually because I have been working too hard, and it's not a year off. What it is, it means that I can catch up, that I can actually breathe. I'm really boring in the fact that I think, what can I do that isn't writing? Oh, I know, I'll write something else. I love projects. I've always loved joke writing. You know, that was my kind of first profession. Really, my big writing profession was writing for the greetings card market. But I also like to go to the cinema. I love the cinema. I love stories, and I love a big screen and shouty speakers. So my kind of happy place is the cinema. Me and my partner, luckily, we love that. I love the theatre, especially if there's popcorn and nachos involved. You know, we'll go and have the full machines.
Yeah.
I like to go out for a meal. I like to just sit and talk. I'm very lucky. I know not all women have a relationship where they can talk and laugh with their partner, and I do. We like the same things. We love watching boxing matches.
Wow.
We love boxing. We love the boxing. We're all keyed up for this one this weekend. There's a beauty on.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, you know, I like going. I'm a late comer, but I do like going to the gym. I always loved cooking, and my choices have got more healthy now. Instead of making cakes, I'll think, oh blimey, you know, I'll put together this nice salad and things. And I love cooking. Yeah. I love putting stuff together. I love crafting. I love doing things with my hands. I played the piano since I was 6, but I only play for pleasure. I don't play for, you know, and I love performing. I love poetry, and I love performing theatre in a theatre. I love talking. You probably gathered. I love performing. So the drama degree did come in handy in the end. But I like my solitary moments. I like to do things with crafty stuff. I like to do stuff with my partner, and I like walking the dog. I like going out and just walking and letting my head breathe. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes ideas that I haven't even thought of come to my head, and I don't give myself chance for it to breathe if I'm listening to music. At night, the earphones are in and TikTok's on. I love just scrolling around and having 30-second hits of TikTok.
Yeah, I think we all do. Yeah.
I love it. I just love it. I can't say it's a sleep aid, but I just, you know, I do love it. I love the mad, wacky things that are out there. You know, I love the things that you think, my God, what an idea that is. That's just bonkers. I love that. I love that human beings are mad. Yeah, makes me feel a bit more sane by comparison, I think, probably.
Oh, amazing. Right, ladies, I've just got a couple more questions, but if anyone's got any questions for Millie, please pop them in the chat so we can ask her. But I was going to ask you, what might we find in your handbag?
Well, I've got my handbag here, actually. It's always at the side of me, ready. If you want, it's not staged. I've always got it here.
Okay.
Because I've always got it ready. So it's a nice little Lulu Guinness one. I've got a tape measure in it because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Salt sachets because Marks and Spencer's never have enough salt when you're going away. This my bang is already clued up for a trip I'm going on. I've got a nail file because there's nothing worse than going somewhere and having a raggy nail and having to try and. I've got an inhaler. I haven't used it for years, but just in case. I've got pill box with magnesium in it because it helps to sleep.
Yeah.
A pad, obviously. Pen, obviously. I've got God, this is embarrassing. Look, I've got this is my partner bought me years ago a Vivienne Westwood purse perfect shape, but look, it is battered to buggery. Look, it's pathetic. Makeup bag, mirror, magnified mirror because my eyes have gone, glasses cleaner, tenor lady, obs.
I've said it.
Mrs. Glam powder, my TikTok buy, which, believe the hype, it's brilliant. And what else? Oh, magnifying glass, because we go to a lot of antique shops with my other half, and I've always got a little. I've got a loop. I've got either a loop or a little magnifying glass, so we can look at dates. My perfume I love a bit of bling, and my trusty headphones for the train.
Nice.
Because I always like my headphones. I love my headphones. I like to shut myself away. So that is all clued up for a trip this weekend.
Yep, amazing. Where are you off to? Anywhere exciting?
Harrogate. I'm going to Harrogate. I'm going to see Steel Eye Span, who are my favourites. And my partner took me there once because he knew I loved Steel Eye Span. A folk group, loved them since I was very young. And then I got him into it. He was a surprising convert.
Wow. So
he bought me tickets to go see Steel Eye Span for my birthday. And so that my handbag is all ready. Even in the salt, in case we call in anywhere for some chips and there's not enough salt on them.
I love that. I'm going to start doing that. It's clever.
I knit them from IKEA. I have to take them and put them in there, but I've used them always salt.
I like that. So we've got a few questions here. So what are you reading at the moment? Are you reading anything?
I am. Oh God, this is embarrassing. Look, I didn't know this question was coming up, but I've just posted this on Instagram because I've just literally finished this. It's a Kathy Bramley book that's coming out in July, and it was so nice that I was reading it in the bath and I thought I'm not going to fall asleep. I'm going to finish this book. And I dropped it in the bath. Look at the state of it.
Okay.
So I just sent to this and said, I dropped this in the bath because I fell asleep. I didn't want to, I was like reading it. And I thought, and I dropped it in the bath. That is a very well loved book. It's somewhere only we know. It's coming. It's an art. We get sent, advanced copies to read, and it's coming out in July, but I really loved it. I love Kathy anyway, but I know that the story behind this book. She lost her husband a couple of years ago, and I know that she's put a lot into this book. So I couldn't put it down. And as I say, I was dropping off, and I thought, shoot, I dried it on the radiator. But that is a well-loved book.
Brilliant. So I went to look out for them.
It's a beauty.
I read The Perfectly Imperfect Woman and loved it. You said you like cooking. Is that where your recipes came from?
Yeah. Yes, it was, because I did Come Down With Me. It was out in 2010. Long story. That's how I kind of hooked up with my partner through that thing. So it brought quite a lot of extra bonuses. But I've always loved cooking. I would never say I was a great cook, but I always liked putting stuff together. And so but The Perfectly Imperfect Woman came because I have a cracking cheesecake recipe. If anybody wants it, happy to share. But I'd done a couple of books before about afternoon teas, and wherever I went, I got an afternoon tea. And I got to the stage where if anybody said scone, I was barfing because I need. And people were putting it on. It's like, surprise, we put you an afternoon tea on. And I thought, well, if this is the impact that my books have, then they're going to put cheesecake on if I write a book about cheesecake. And lo and behold, they did. So it was great. So, if I fancy anything, I'd never write a book about marzipan because I hate it. But I love putting stuff together. And I like a recipe that I follow and then think, well, actually, my ingredient, I don't like that. Not a lover of coriander. I don't like tarragon, so I'll swap that. So I kind of get tried and tested recipes and make them my own. I love doing that. I love kind of faffing about with recipes.
Yeah.
Yeah, love cooking. And I won, by the way. I won Come Down With Me.
Oh, you know, that's a good achievement. Well, Claire in the group is actually a librarian, and she said the number one no-no is reading books in the bath. So
Oh no, I love them. This is, I mean, this is my, you see, the bath is my reading place because I'm busy.
yeah,
Busy. I never do this, but I really wanted, I didn't want to go to sleep without finishing it. I've never done this with a book before, but I was just taking pictures about, you can check on Instagram. I was just taking pictures and posted this to Kathy and said, look what I've done. I'm a disgrace. But reading books in the bath is that's one of my happy places. I always read in the bath. I've got the Radox out at night, and every night I have a bath. My water rates bill is enormous.
I can imagine.
So yeah, we share. My husband, my other half says, leave your water in. You know, so I leave my water in, so I'm not allowed to have a wee in the bath like normal people probably would. I have to get out. It kills me that I have to top the water up, but you know.
Yeah.
Sacrifices we make, eh, ladies, for our other.
Do you still go on cruises?
Yes, I do. I love them. I adore them. You know, I mean, the book that I'm going to start writing next is another cruise book. So obviously this summer I'm going on a cruise for, you know, for research purposes. That's what I'm telling the tax man. But yes, I love cruising. I didn't think I would take to cruising at all. And it was only because I went on a cruise when the kids were little, and I was divorced and I had a kid at 3 and 4. And a friend convinced me that it would be a good way to go on holiday, that, you know, rather than go to a resort, that I would be able to get a holiday. The kids could go in a kids club, and it was brilliant. The first thing I did when I came home was book another and then I wrote a book set on one, and then the P&O asked me if I'd go on and talk on board. And then they wanted me to go on and write a blog or whatever. And so I've got a lovely relationship with P&O, and I love them. You know, it's like a home from home for me. So yes, brilliant. Absolutely. And my book that I wrote, so many people again had said, never fancied cruising until I read your book. Mm-hmm. But I booked a cruise, and then they write to you and say, I booked another, it's all your fault, blah, blah. And I'm sorry I'm making you spend thousands of pounds, but you'll thank me for it in the end.
Yeah, so that's thing to do with cruising.
Yeah, I love cruising. Love it.
We've got one. What, for a newcomer to your books, what would be your first recommendation?
I always say the cheapest, because then you're unlikely to chuck it against a wall. But I have got one on Kindle at the moment, which is called It's Raining Men. It's probably the most fantastical of all my books, but it's only 99p. So if you've not tried me, it's worth a download. If it were Christmas, I would say I wish it could be Christmas every day, because that is my favourite. If the paperback of this one, my new one, is coming out in June. Mm-hmm. And you know, if you can hang on a couple of weeks, as it were, maybe try that one, because it's about women who of all ages, who all get together through friendship, and it's one that I'm very, very, very proud of. But it depends, you know, read the blurbs, go onto Amazon and read the blurbs and see what you fancy. You might want to, you think, oh, I quite like a fireman in a book, so then you would head for the book with the fireman in it, One True North. Or if you like cruising, Here Come the Girls, which is about cruising. Just read the blurb and see what you fancy.
And what about if you've got a book club? Is there any of your books that would be good for that?
I think definitely same time next week. I know it's already been adopted by a lot of book clubs. Again, I'm going to sound samey, but I know that if it's a book at Christmas, that I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day has gone down really, really well with the book club community. But all of the books, all of my books are very female orientated. They're all about women like myself. I would class as ordinary women. The things that affect me, even as a northern woman, are going to affect a woman who lives in Australia, about friendships and families and unfaithful partners and meeting new people and renaissances, etc. So I've had people report through all of the books that, you know, we've adopted it for the book club, etc.
Yeah.
Read the
Brilliant.
blurb. Read the blurb.
So
See what you
lots of fabulous recommendations, ladies. Get yourselves on Amazon after this. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but thank you so, so much for joining us. I loved chatting to you. It was really interesting to hear all about your stories and your life.
It's been an absolute pleasure, honestly. Thank you very much for having me.
Great. And we will hopefully chat to you soon, and we'll get you a bag on the way as well.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Honestly, great. My day.
Absolutely. And nice to see a handbag.
Fill it with all the salt and Matana ladies and stuff, and the empty purse, because it'd be great to carry around. You know, don't you feel great when you've got a lovely handbag on your arm?
You do. Yeah, that's what it's all about here.
Lovely lipstick, and it's just a pleasure to have a really nice handbag.
It is. It is. Well, I'm glad you feel the same way. Right. Well, thank you very much. We've got lots of love going on in the chat here, saying thank you and loving your books. Loved It's Raining Men. So yeah, loads of positive feedback, and we'll definitely get the new book when it comes out. And the Christmas one is on the list.
Yes, I'm very proud of that one as well. And then you'll all go then and book a lunch on the Northern Bell, the train.
Oh yeah, we could do a trip, Bags Joy trip.
Amazing. It's expensive, and it's worth even more. And you'll thank me. Honestly, beautiful, gorgeous.
Well, congratulations on such a fabulous career. You've done really, really well.
Thank you. Not bad for a lass from Barnsley, who thought absolutely no chance have I got of ever having this career. So always believe your own hype. That's it.
Oh, we've loved it. Thank you so, so much, and we'll speak to you soon.
Pleasure. Take care, ladies.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.